The wind swept across the endless Wyoming prairie, carrying the scent of dry grass and distant rain. The Carter Ranch stretched for miles beneath a crimson sunset, its fences marking one of the richest pieces of land in the territory. People said the ranch was cursed, not because of ghosts, because everyone who tried to own it paid a terrible price. 28-year-old Ethan Walker sat tall on his black stallion outside the Carter estate. He was handsome, confident, and known throughout the frontier as a man who always got what he wanted. Dressed in a dark leather coat, black hat, polished boots, and carrying a silver revolver at his hip, Ethan had built a fortune buying struggling ranches. But the Carter Ranch was different. It wasn't just land. It controlled the only reliable river crossing for 50 miles. Owning it would make Ethan the most powerful rancher in the territory. The only obstacle was Eleanor Carter. 26-year-old Eleanor stepped onto the porch wearing a simple, cream-colored prairie dress, brown riding boots, and a dark green riding jacket. Her long auburn hair was tied neatly beneath a straw hat, while her emerald eyes calmly studied Ethan. Many believed she was just another lonely rancher's daughter. They were wrong. 3 years earlier, Eleanor's father, Thomas Carter, had been murdered during a land dispute. The killer was never found, but Eleanor had spent 3 years gathering clues. Every trail, every witness, every secret led to Ethan Walker. She had never forgotten his face. "Mr. Walker," she greeted politely, "I've come to make you an offer. I've heard all your offers. This one's different." Ethan smiled confidently. "Marry me." Silence filled the air. Even the wind seemed to stop. Eleanor looked surprised, then smiled. "You want my ranch. I want us to build something together?" She looked into his eyes. He lied well, but not well enough. She quietly replied, "I accept." Ethan couldn't believe his luck. The richest land in Wyoming would soon belong to him. He had no idea. He had just married the only woman trying to destroy him. The wedding took place 1 week later. It was small, no music, no celebration, just a preacher, a few ranch hands, and endless prairie surrounding them. As Ethan placed the ring on Eleanor's finger, he thought victory was finally his. Eleanor silently promised herself something else: justice. The first weeks of marriage seemed peaceful. Eleanor became the perfect wife. She cooked breakfast every morning. She rode beside Ethan across the ranch. She smiled during every conversation. She asked nothing, complained about nothing. Ethan slowly lowered his guard, exactly as Eleanor hoped. Every evening, Ethan locked himself inside his office. He believed Eleanor was asleep. Instead, she quietly slipped from their bedroom. One night, she noticed him removing a hidden ledger from beneath the floorboards. When he left the room, Eleanor carefully entered. Inside the ledger were names, land purchases, payments, bribes, and one familiar name: Sheriff Daniel Brooks, the same sheriff who had declared her father's murder unsolved. Eleanor secretly copied every page. The evidence wasn't enough yet. She needed proof tying Ethan directly to the murder. Days later, Ethan announced a cattle trip to a neighboring county. He would be gone for 2 nights. The moment he disappeared over the hills, Eleanor entered the locked barn. Hidden beneath loose hay was an old wooden chest. Inside, she found expensive watches, gold coins, property deeds, and one blood-stained pocket watch. She immediately recognized it. It belonged to Thomas Carter. Her father's initials, TC, were engraved inside. Her hands trembled. She finally had proof Ethan had been there the night her father died. That evening, an old ranch hand named Samuel approached her. "I've been waiting 3 years. You knew?" Samuel nodded sadly. "I saw everything." Eleanor stared. "You saw who killed him?" Samuel lowered his voice. "It wasn't Ethan." The world seemed to stop. What? Ethan wasn't the shooter. He hired the men. He wanted your father scared into selling. But one of them panicked. They killed him. Eleanor felt sick. Ethan hadn't pulled the trigger, but he had caused everything. When Ethan returned, he noticed Eleanor watching him differently. What happened? Nothing. You've changed. So have you. He laughed nervously. Neither trusted the other anymore. A week later, Ethan invited wealthy investors to the ranch. During dinner, he proudly announced, "Soon this entire valley will belong to the Walker family." Everyone applauded. Only Eleanor remained silent. She already knew his real plan. He intended to force dozens of small ranchers off their land, exactly as he'd tried with her father. That night, Eleanor secretly rode into town. She met Judge Harrison, then Sheriff Brooks, then Samuel. One by one, she collected sworn statements. The sheriff refused to cooperate at first, until Eleanor quietly placed the copied ledger on his desk. His face turned white. "You found this?" "I found much more." The sheriff realized his own corruption would soon become public. He had only one choice: tell the truth. Meanwhile, Ethan sensed danger. His accountant disappeared. One investor suddenly canceled their agreement. His old partners stopped answering telegrams. Something was happening. Someone was destroying everything he had built. He searched Eleanor's bedroom. Inside her dresser, he found copies of the ledger, letters from witnesses, the blood-stained watch. He finally understood. She had known from the beginning. That evening, Ethan confronted her. "You planned this marriage." "Yes." "You used me. You murdered my family." "I never killed him." "You ordered it." "I only wanted the land." "You destroyed lives for land." Ethan's confident voice finally cracked. "I never meant for Thomas to die." "But he did. And you became rich." Silence hung heavily between them. For the first time, Ethan looked ashamed. The next morning, dozens of riders arrived. The sheriff, the judge, federal marshals, Samuel, several ranchers. They surrounded the Carter ranch. Ethan stepped outside, holding no weapon. He knew resistance was useless. Sheriff Brooks read the arrest warrant. Fraud, land theft, bribery, conspiracy. Ethan looked toward Eleanor. "You've won." She answered quietly, "No. My father should still be alive." As Ethan was placed into handcuffs, another rider suddenly galloped toward the ranch. One of Ethan's former partners, Jacob Reeves. He fired his revolver. A bullet flew toward Eleanor. Without thinking, Ethan shoved her aside. The bullet struck Ethan in the shoulder. Jacob tried escaping. Federal marshals chased him across the prairie before capturing him. During questioning, Jacob confessed everything. He admitted he had personally shot Thomas Carter. Ethan had ordered intimidation. Jacob had committed murder on his own. Weeks later, Jacob was sentenced to hang. Several corrupt officials lost their positions. The stolen ranches were returned to their rightful owners. Families who had suffered for years finally received justice. Ethan survived his wound. He accepted responsibility for every crime he had committed. Instead of denying the charges, he confessed in court. Months passed. Spring returned to the Carter ranch. Wildflowers covered the hills once more. Children laughed near the river crossing. Neighboring ranchers worked together instead of fighting. Eleanor rebuilt her father's home exactly as he had dreamed. One afternoon, Samuel handed her an old photograph. It showed Thomas Carter smiling beside a much younger Eleanor. On the back he had written,